Instead of trying to change the white man in your mind, make you accept us, we change the mind of the black man and make him accept himself. And as soon as he accepts himself, he'll solve his own problem. He won't be trying to force himself into your factory and into your bedroom and into your kitchen.
With no education, you have neo-colonialism instead of colonialism, like you got in Africa 9, like you got in Haiti. So what we're talking about is there has to be educational program. That's very important. As a matter of fact, we are so important for us that a person has to go through 6 weeks of our political education before he can consider himself a member of the party, able to even run down ideology for the party. Why? Because if they don't have the education, then they're nowhere. You dig what I'm saying? They're nowhere because they don't even know why they're doing what they're doing. You might get people caught up in the emotionalist movement. You understand me? You might get them caught up in because they're poor and they want something. And then if they're not educated, they want more. And before you know it, they'll be chaplets. And before you know it, we have Negro imperialists.
Hey, you. I know you digging Harlem Liberation School, all those interviews and those mini documentaries. Stop playing. You know Harlem Liberation School is fire. So what you need to do right now, if you're watching on YouTube, is click that red subscribe button. Share the video, add your comments, and click the notification bell. Peace and Black Power families, brother AGYEI TYEHIMBA from Harlem Liberation School, where we teach black people proudly to wake up, clean up, and stand up. Family, we hope that you are enjoying your Wednesday. We hope that you are at peace, yet preparing for war, because whether you want to acknowledge it or not, we are, in fact, being warred against. We're being warred against in classrooms in certain states in this country where teachers can't teach African-American studies. We're being warred against in certain cities where the water is toxic. We're being warred against in certain academic spaces at the higher learning level, at the collegiate level, where people, African-American studies departments, Africana studies departments are being warred against with exorbitant prices for food, family, and for utilities and cable and everything else is becoming more and more difficult to survive in this country. And it's interesting because we also have a person that was a former president who's guilty of 34 felony counts, who will probably not do a day of jail time, and who will still be allowed to run for president, even though he participated in what most people would consider traitorous activity by calling for and leading essentially an insurrection on the nation's capital while he was a sitting president. You know, even though there's plenty of evidence involving him in being inappropriately involved in the presidential elections and having certain relationships with Putin in Russia. It's just a number of things that's going on here, family. So don't take it from me. Take it from the news, reliable, non-corporate control news. We are, in fact, being warred against. And we're not the only ones being warred against. Latinos are being warred against. Brown people. Indigenous Americans are being warred against. Still living in little overcrowded, infertile plots of land they call reservations. still not able to get a quality education, still disconnected from their original culture, and so many people, poor people, women of all stripes and shapes and colors. So it's very appropriate, given that this time we're living in, that we have a special guest today. Uh, this brother is, his name is Dhoruba Bin Wahad, and Brother Dhoruba has a very rich and interesting history. First, though, I want to make sure I put this on. I want you, family, if you got a few dollars, you can send in your Cash App and your Chime and your Chase and your Bank of America account. You know, Harlem Liberation School set up a GoFundMe, a fundraising campaign for Brother Dhoruba to help him with medical expenses and to a lesser degree transportation, but mostly medical expenses. And if you have it to give, please dig deep. Go to the link you see, GoFundMe.com. You see it there. Support Dhoruba Bin Wahad, and definitely send something for our brother, so that we show ourselves, we show him, and we show the world that we take care of those that take care of us. It's only right. That's the natural order of things. That's how we used to move, and we want to return to that type of culture and sentiment. Today we're gonna have Baba Dhoruba, who's gonna be addressing something very important. He sent out kind of a communication about it. I got a chance to read it and check it out. It's pretty thorough. And he's going to be talking about the need to organize a united front that's, anti-imperialist, anti-fascist. I think there's a very interesting take that he has, and I think that we should hear what he has to say on it, take what he has to say seriously, and give it serious thought. It's going to require you, though, to get the most out of this. It's going to really require you to be able to look past your particular ideology, family. We sometimes struggle with that. Ideology is here to liberate us, but when it becomes too narrow and too rigid and we can't see beyond it, that which was set up to liberate us can become that which suffocates us, family. So to get the most out of this, please open your minds, try to hear what our good brother is saying, try to get past your ideological restraints and commitments, and think about the world as it is today. Not how we think it is or want it to be, but as it is. I want to put this up real quick, and then in a minute, I see Brother Dhoruba's in the studio. He may be having difficulty with his camera, I'm not sure. But just want to introduce very briefly Brother Dhoruba, and then we want to bring him in. Baba Dhoruba Bin Wahad was a Black Panther Party field secretary in New York City. I believe in that role, he helped to organize Panther branches in an entire region of the Northeast, though I could be wrong with that. He's a former political prisoner for 19 years, having been falsely arrested. I think he got out in the year 1990. That's when I graduated college. Wow. Been there for 19 years, and because he was privy to the COINTELPRO of the FBI in the United States government, he was able to go through, I think, up to 300,000 pages of surveillance and all types of nonsense the government participated in to set him up and other people from the Black Panther Party. And we know that they tried to set up and did successfully set up a whole lot of our people in different organizations in the Black Power movement, right? But he was able to make a case and to win his case and to be released in 1990. He went on to, before that, to help co-found the Black Liberation Army. And ever since he's been released in 1990, and even before, he's really been kind of a strong voice speaking out against fascism and imperialism, and white supremacy, and things of this nature. Still, I believe also he has a book coming out. Maybe we'll get him to talk a little bit about that before we end the show. But anyway, I want to bring our brother on. Baba Dhoruba, what it be?
I'm fine. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Loud and clear. How you doing?
Cool. I'm fine, brother. How are you?
Hey, man, no complaints. I'm glad to be breathing, Yes, sir. So now, before we get into this, Dhoruba, Could you tell us briefly about the book you have that's coming, that you're working on, and what it's going to be about?
Well, there's actually two that's coming out. One is some political writings that I've done that are very relevant to the present moment, and that's coming out in at the end of the year. And the other one, of course, is my bio story, the one I want to write about my generation, rather than write just about me. And so that one will be a little more, I think, more important to me, because I think it explains ontologically and socially and culturally and hopefully politically what my generation went through, how the historical moments that we've had to survive. And I think that that would resonate with younger folks and the new generation that's coming up in this in this in this present age of weaponized data and weaponized algorithms and AI and all of these different technological innovations that have made the human family a global village. And in the vestiges of colonialism and imperialism on that globalization, on that global village, are having a devastating impact on people because it's in the hands of fascists, it's in the hands of governments and nations who have a vested interest in maintaining the old hegemonic relationships of imperialism, of economic dependence and debt, and of course maintaining the poor and the working class in a subservient position and in a powerless position. So that hopefully would be um, what I could bring with my bio story, and hopefully I should get it out in another year or so. But it's been very difficult because I live in Africa. I have to deal with medical issues, and so it's not easy. So anyway, that's basically. I hope
All
I
right.
answered your question.
You sure did. Definitely appreciate that. We'll be looking forward to that both of those books actually. Now I read a piece I believe you wrote. I heard you speak about this on brother, I think on Black Power Media not too long ago. It looked like you were giving an actual address. I don't know if you were speaking at the mosque perhaps, but it looked like you were giving an actual presentation. And I found it very interesting, and I kind of felt like it kind of aligned with some of what I've been trying to get my beloved Black nationalist and Pan African community to understand, to get out of the rigid adherence to ideology and see the world as it is, and what we need to do and what our resources are and how we need to move, and not be stuck on so and so said and this book said and this is what we believe, so when you saying those things, I was kind of feeling it, but I know it's controversial because I know our people. I would like you, brother Dhoruba, you've been very vocal about our need to organize a united front. Could you, for those who do not know what that is and what you mean by that, what is a united front?
Well, a united front, um, historically and contemporarily, is an alliance of different groups and organizations, maybe even movements, and that have a common enemy, that have a common uh, tactical and strategic interests and goals, and they come together in order to amplify each other's strengths, in order to amplify each other's organization organizational projects and efforts and platforms. So, for instance, if you have an organization that's organizing homeless people, and it's a small organization, it doesn't take corporate donations. It raises its own money by doing various things in the community, and so it's a small operation, but they have a face-to-face relationship with the homeless people. They have a face-to-face relationship with the struggles of people, so they know exactly what people need, what people want, uh, and so but they're very limited in their ability to mobilize support outside of the small circles that they have. They have an inability to 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 distribute person power in different areas in the community to help the homeless and all of these things. So if they were part of the United Front, for instance, that had a more powerful organizations that were dealing nationally or on a regional level with real estate interests who are squandering tax dollars on unaffordable real estate that people and working people can't access because they don't have the necessary money, etc. Well, that type of larger organization with a broader objective and strategy can see how supporting the smaller organization that has a face-to-face relationship with the homeless people on the streets, in the subway stations and in the bus stations, how these people efforts can be amplified, can be used, and the product of their struggle in terms of getting real estate and affordable housing can then go to people who really need it. So both struggles can complement each other. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But that's in an alliance. Now that even goes across class interests, because some classes might have a tactical interest at a certain particular point in time, because they represent, let's say, they're educators, and they represent grassroots and public school educators. Okay, now we know the problems in public schooling and taxpayer dollars, how they're being misused. We know all of those problems that'll come up in that situation, right? But they have the allegiance of, say, hundreds and hundreds of teachers in certain urban areas that believe that they fight for them. They fight for legislation for them, for reforms for them, right? And then you might have another program. You might have a program, let's say you got the new African Black Panther Party in the community that's working with young people that are in the streets trying to get access to certain types of programs for uh, for those who have limited schools. Let's just say they're working on doing liberation schools in the community, and they're giving out free types of materials and books to these young kids and trying to educate them. Albeit they're trying to do it because they're revolutionaries and because they believe that socialism, that we should take what we have in order to get what we want. So they're grassroots. Okay. So do you think that it wouldn't be benefit to that smaller organization to have access to the larger a group or organization that had organized teachers in the schools that were dealing with troubled children and all of these things? You see, so one would benefit from the other. You see, and so alliances are like that. They're on principle. That doesn't stop you from doing the work that you're doing. It should amplify it. It should magnify it until the point where we should be able, as a united front, to call the shots in certain areas. We should be able to shut down entire regions and cities with our relationships with working people, with poor people, with people in different professions who are not being treated correctly. So we should be able to exercise ourselves as a political force that can be reckoned with. And there's
Brother
no such
Dhoruba, let me
political force
interrupt
as
you. I'm
well
sorry.
anymore.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. But I know that we have pockets of nationalists, maybe even some Pan-Africans and different people who, because of their ideological bent, would be against that. They would say, well, we can't trust white folk and all these people. They got their own interest, and history shows that, even the communist critique, the boys had a communist critique, not Baldwin, Ellison, Richard Wright. So they would say, man, we can't trust them. What makes you think that we can? How do you respond to them? Because I know that you probably heard that response from people.
Now, let me give you a little bit of history. In 1969, the Black Panther Party, the original Black Panther Party, analyzed the conditions at that time. There was the war in Vietnam and the covert war in Cambodia. There was the struggle in the Middle East and Palestine, and the PFLP and Al Fatah were engaging in guerrilla war with the European racist settler state of Israel in the Middle East. Many of the liberation struggles in Africa were still going on. The MPLA hadn't yet won. Algeria had won their struggle against colonialism. Imperialism was on its back foot in a way because of the armed struggles and the armed conflicts. And this was occurring at a point in the Cold War between the US and then the USSR, which was Russia, and NATO, and then these other military alliances that the US has forged after World War II. There was the struggles in Africa, in Mozambique, in Guinea-Bissau, in Angola, in the Congo. And so there were resistance movements in which the Black Panther Party had relationships, to which the Black Panther Party, the original party, had relationships. And this was the same in Europe with the left and in the United States as well. So all of these struggles impacted on how the US government allocated its resources, how it tried to feed the people and fight these wars of suppression abroad and financing these reactionary movements and all of these things. And at the same time, they had to deal with the anti-war movement that was on every campus, much like today is the pro-Palestinian students were on every campus. Thousands of them were arrested. The state and the government cracked down on them in order to shut them up, talking about Palestine and the Palestinians. But you see, the results of it was all the information now comes out about how Zionist money, AIPAC money, has more influence in the Black community with Black elected officials than the Black community does. Okay, we have Meeks, we have the Speaker of the House, Jeffries. They all are on the Zionist tip. They all are getting money from AIPAC for their campaigns. We read about the Black candidate in New York that was offered millions of dollars to get him out of the campaign because he was pro-Palestinian. Okay, so once we understand that white supremacy and the racist nation state of the United States that supports a European colonizing entity like Israel in the heart of the Levant in the Middle East. You understand? Why is it there? It's there to maintain U.S. global hegemony and power and its influence in the strategic region of Western Asia. That's why it's there, and that's why it relates to us. That's how it relates to us in that it co-ops our elected officials. It has our so-called elected officials in the Congressional Black Caucus silent on the war in Palestine. It's just as they're basically silent on the U.S. subsidizing the war in the Sudan, where tens of millions of people have been displaced and face starvation. These are all parts of U.S. foreign policy that impacts on us politically at home, and how we pay our money and taxes, and how the government operates against our interests. So all of these students on these campuses were attacked by the police. They were beaten, just like the students in the 60s were attacked by the police and beaten because they called for an end to the Vietnam War. Okay, and so there grew up a strong anti-war movement in the United States, mass movements of hundreds of thousands of students, mostly white, who were radicalized by their opposition to the U.S. war in Vietnam. They denied the draft. They fought against the draft. They fought against their schools investing in the U.S. military-industrial complex, and so they were attacked. And so, but they had a powerful movement, mass movement. And then there was the civil rights movement, which had reached its peak in 64 and got the symbolic Civil Rights Voting Act passed. You know, there was that. And that civil rights movement had begun to move into the poor people's campaign, working in the community with poor people. Then there was the Black Power movement, which had rose up after the March on Selma and radicalized many of the Black students, because a lot of the HBCUs began to go on strike in solidarity with the anti-war movement and began to demand Black studies and different programs in the school. So the country was up in arms. There were tenants who were demanding decent housing. There were unions. The biggest tenants movement in New York City history was occurring at this particular time. So when the Black Panther Party looked at all of this, the Central Committee said, you know, fascism hadn't yet, the police state hadn't yet tightened, militarized this grip on the state like it does now, like it has now. They were taken aback by all of these student demonstrations. You remember the Democratic Party convention and the police riot there at the Democratic Party convention. So the police hadn't yet gotten their militarized act together. And the counterintelligence program was trying to divide popular dissent, trying to undermine leaders. It was assassinating Black activists like Fred Hampton and Mark Clark. It was arresting those of us who were organizing in the community, like the Panther 21 and all of this. All of this was happening at this time. So the Black Panther Party said, well, you know, we need to call everybody together and build up a national anti-fascist front. And coming out of this front would be national committees to combat fascism in each city, little chapters from after everyone agrees that we need this anti-fascist front, and all these organizations contribute, right? So we'll build our demands on the local level. And the first demand that we will come for is community control of the police, decentralization of public safety, because it was the police that were in the community that was brutalizing us, that was killing us. It was almost every rebellion that you had in the 60s occurred because of a police murder or the rumor that the police murdered or killed some innocent Black folks. So high on the agenda of this anti-fascist convention was community control of police, was community control of public safety and education. Um, and, and, and this is why we call for a united front. So we reached out to all of the young new left organizations, SDS, the Communist Party USA, and we reached out to all of the Black nationalist organizations and all of the militant evangelical movements. And so we should come together because we had that concept of the Rainbow Coalition, that working people, poor people, all deserve to have power and all deserve to wield power in their best interest. And Black folks deserve to have Black power, and power to the people was our maxim. So we reached out to the Black cultural nationalists, you know, and the Black communists. We reached out to everybody. And so 7,000, 8,000 people showed up in 1969. The same a few months before Fred Hampton was murdered, a month after the term SWAT became public with the raid on the Black Panther Party office in LA. So 7,000, 8,000 people showed up. The majority of them were from the anti-war movement. They were from the socialist movement. They were majority white radical. I would say 80%, 70%.
Mm-hmm.
And the Black nationalists didn't show up. The cultural nationalists didn't show up. Black, so-called Black radical elected officials didn't show up.
Why do you think that is, Brother Dhoruba? Of everybody.
I'm about to tell you.
Mm-hmm.
The SCLC showed up. Martin Luther King, they showed up, and then subsequently, you know, when we went in to put the police, when we broke up and we set up the national committees in several cities in New York and Chicago and Pittsburgh and throughout the country, we worked in the community to get referendums on the local during the local elections for community control of police, for the breakdown of the police into an asset of the Black community. We wanted community control over public safety. We needed to hire and fire, and we need to vet the officers that work in our community and trusted with public safety. And so we got that on the ballot in several states. In New York, we got it on the ballot, and it was the police union that spent millions and millions of dollars to twist it around to mean that it wouldn't effectively control crime in the community, that only the police who had central leadership and training to do this, that, and the other. And they started using their propaganda and their access to the media to twist the message around. And as a result, when the people went to the to the polls, the local polls, and it had the choice between community control of police and the civilian complaint review board, which the mayor and the police union endorsed. The people were told to vote yes if you mean no to the police civilian complaint review board, and vote no if you mean yes to the community control. And they got the civilian complaint review board, which was totally toothless. It had no power, and that every city began to emulate civilian complaint review board. Well, we know how well that is done, and so to come to this conclusion, I'm saying to you, when we went back to do work in the community, we were confronted with the poverty pimps the black capitalists, you know, the ones that were talking about LBJ's war on poverty, and you know, we needed to open up, you know, we needed to spend more of the black dollar in the black community, you know, that rap, you see, you know, they came along, and and also with them came the decriers of black on black crime. Because we were talking about police murder of black people. We were talking about the police occupying our community like a foreign army. And so these Negroes come along talking about we need to worry more about the criminals and black on black crime, that we killing each other. It ain't the police, it's we killing each other. You see, those Negroes came. They were the ones that did. None of these ones came to the call for a united front. I just want you to understand that. None of these groups came. And then there was the Messianic crew, the ones that was talking about the mothership, and black folks, you know, were the supreme beings, and white folks was clones and all of that, you know. And so, you know, we don't, you know, we're going to be liberated in 666 years, or when the devil, all of them, they didn't come either. And then we had the pork chop nationalists. You see, we call them pork chop nationalists because they weren't going to bust a grape with a ball peen hammer, you know, but they talk all of that, you know, African, you know, garb and culture and everything. But in terms of mobilizing people for power, they wasn't with that. You had to adhere. We were told that we had to go back to of course, our original culture. We had to go back to our original people and all of that. So when you ask them what relationship going back to our original culture, original people have to the power paradigms of the nation state, of the white supremacist construct that is America, how do we deal with that? You see what I'm saying? Within the context of black nationalism, they were talking about we had to organize black people in positions of power, and we have to take over our communities. Okay, cool. All right. So what happened, to make a long story short, all of these forces, these black forces that were critical of a united front, that thought that they were subsuming their work to the power of white people, or that we had to love someone else's lifestyle in order to see that we had a common class enemy. These same folks wound up being the leaders and the public figures in the black community that supported the war on drugs and supported the war on crime, that amplified the prisons and magnified the prison intake of black flesh in the 1970s, the war on drugs, the crack epidemics, and all of these things. It was the black elected community, the comprador class, that endorsed Clinton's crime bills, that endorsed the militarized policing in our community, in the war on drugs and the war on crime. There was none of these people and none of their elected proteges came to that conference for an anti-fascist front. They didn't come.
So, Brother Dhoruba, as I understand it, it sounds kind of like it's coming back to Malcolm in '65 when he's kind of disavowed some of his former beliefs from the nation, the messianic sort of thing, and now he's saying he's talking about united front. He's talking about I'm ready to stand with anybody. I'm paraphrasing, who wants to get rid of this wicked system. Sounds like you're kind of picking up from that sort of angle. I'm curious to know, as you see it, these people be all black people of different political stripes, or anyone who's against fascism and imperialism?
Well, I think that given our history in the European settler state of the United States, I think it's very important for us to understand that a united front for us, the people of African ancestry, is a tactic of war. It's a strategy and it's a maneuver of war, because our position and our existence in America is and was from an act of war. We were kidnapped from our ancestral homes. Our continent was depopulated by the millions, and the transatlantic slave trade that brought our ancestors over to the Western Hemisphere, and that that produced um, the the wealth, or the seed money of mercantilism then, and finance capital now, was the slavery and the enslavement and the forced kidnapping of our ancestors, my ancestors. So our relationship in America is a consequence of war, and that war hasn't stopped. That war continues. And why do I say that? Because war is the continuation of politics by violent means, and politics is the continuation of war by non-violent or non-military means. So whether we've achieved individual wealth in certain places and we've become successful, first movie star this or first model that, whatever it is, these are accoutrements, these are awards are given to a population whose status remains the consequence of war. And so, in order for us to empower ourselves, in order for us to if we talk about reparations, just say for argument's sake, if we even talk about reparations, we either delusional, or we're being realistic. We're delusional if we're thinking within the irrational or delusional paradigm of white supremacist construct and its financial systems. If we're delusional enough to believe that an empire, a nation, even as it begins to deteriorate, the $73 trillion in debt is going to legislate, allocate, or give African people reparations. And then when we look at the history of reparations, we see that reparations has always been a consequence of war and conflict, in which the side that lost pays the reparations. We haven't won this war that we're still in yet. So if we're still at war, we need to win this war, and then we demand reparations from those who, the vestiges of the empire or the class or the ruling elite that subjugated us in the first place. So if if we're realistic, then if we're saying that reparations is due us, but in fact reparations has never been given to a people who have not won a war. So until we win that war, we need to maximize our power, we need to focus our strength, and we need to identify with those who have the same enemy that we have. Okay? We have the same corporate enemy. Working class poor people, working class black people, non-working, unemployed, have the same enemy, and it's the capitalist ruling class.
Yeah, I'm feeling you on that, Brother Dhoruba. It seems, though, to me that one of the main problems with this getting in the way of that type of unity are these different beliefs that we have, this in-group fighting, that this group is the reason that we don't have this, or that group is the
But
reason we don't have that.
let's separate the two. A united front is not based on the fact that we're weak. If we are unified, if we understand the principles of unity as opposed to the egocentric politics of uniformity, if we understand the differentiations, then why aren't we strong? Why don't we have a strong, unifying Black movement? Okay, how are we being picked apart by the comprador class for electoral politics, and saying that we have to vote Democrat, or we have to vote the lesser of two evils? We have 50 Cent going to the Capitol, taking pictures with Lauren Boebert and these other arch reactionary racists in Congress, and he's there talking about. I don't know whether they're misquoting him, talking about Black men are moving towards Trump. I mean, what kind of coherent political analysis does that represent? And I mean, but how did you ask yourself, well, how did Homeboy get up there in the first place? And this is not trying to diss him or his intelligence or his abilities, as a businessman. But if we understand capitalism and we understand white supremacy and we understand the white supremacist construct that capitalism reinforced, then we have to ask ourselves, how does Black entrepreneurship and a liquor distribution license transcend into Black political power, or even the idea, the notion of an independent Black state? You see, and if we understand the nature of the nation state, how it evolved, how it has become the type of instrument that it is, we understand how these nation states can fail, and we understand how these nation states can do themselves in, and we understand how when we look at fascism as manifested itself in the geopolitical policies and the militarism of certain nation states. You see.
It sounds like political education is going to be an important part of this, Baba Dhoruba, to kind of get over. What role do you see it playing in this process?
The building of the United Front is a political education class. You ain't got the luxury of going to some academy and sitting back and having classes at a HBCU on the politics of revolutionary struggle and solidarity and building working class movements and all of this shit. You got to learn this on the job. Okay? And so political education is how we have to learn to build unity and how we have to learn to understand what's coming next. What do you think is coming next after the massive anti-Israeli and pro-Palestinian demonstrations that rocked the campuses and that the ruling class tried to shut down and define as anti-Semitic? What do you think happened? Huh? Where do you think all of that energy went? Where do you think those kids went when they left their campuses? You think the genocide in Palestine stopped? Has the murders and killings in the Sudan stopped? Has the war in the Sahel stopped? Has the African youth that are rising up in Africa running the French and the Americans out stopped? So, I mean, look at the U.S. involvement in Haiti. Has that stopped? Okay, so we need to understand that this is a historical moment. These young kids, these young folks, these people who stood up and revealed the moral and ethical bankruptcy of the United States and its complicity with genocide, providing the means to kill 15,000 babies and children. You see? So we know from the bullwhip days what would happen if it was us that rose up. Huh? What if we rose up here? You think that the IDF has been training with the police in the United States in these 59 cop cities that they're trying to build next to major concentrations of black people, the militarized policing is not for us? Okay? So how do we deal with that reality? Because that's the police state. That's democratic fascism we're looking at, straight in the face. And it's not like it was in 1969 when it hadn't consolidated and militarized itself yet. Today, the white supremacy of the European settler state is alive and well in the so-called Make America Great movement.
I have a question for you, Dhoruba. I'm sorry to cut you off. I've been meaning to ask you this for a minute. It sounds like there's an implicit critique of, I'm going to say probably not as much Pan-Africans, but more so black nationalists, that maybe they need to be more global in their thinking. Maybe we need to study revolutions abroad, not just refer to the United States context, that we need to understand the role of alliances and get past the whole racial, just looking at things in a racial way. Is that accurate? Like, in other words,
absolutely. But listen, history has shown us this. This is why I say if you study the radical history of black folks and don't get caught up in the paradigm of the delusional the delusional white supremacist paradigms of race, you'll see that we've already been there, did that, and what has been the result? Because the black nationalists that didn't show up when we called for a united front against fascism, they were the ones that were talking about black faces in high places. They the ones that put in the Gibsons and they put in these black mayors in cities and had these black prosecutors and these black police chiefs. And has the murder of black people ceased? Has the injustice ceased? These black mayors, they come into office, the first thing they got to have is the endorsement of the police union. Are the police workers? So what if the police ain't workers? What are they? They're the armed agents of the state. So why do they have a union? What kind of shit is that? You see? But we never asked these questions. When we black nationalists back then, black faces in high places was, that's what we had to do. Buy black, and be on top black. Be the nigga on the trigger. Huh? And what has it gotten us? Has it gotten us any power? We have more black faces in our places than we've ever had in our history, and we have no power. And if we think that we're going to empower ourselves as a separate people in this country, we're only going to do so if this country and the nation state is in a revolutionary situation, in a revolutionary condition in which our succession, our ability to defend ourselves, our ability to survive can then rely on us and our alliances with the revolutionary forces that's going to tear this nation state apart. So, you can't get around alliance. You don't have to change your lifestyle because you have an alliance against a common enemy with the LGBTQ community. What are you saying? Ain't nobody telling you that you got to live like them or endorse them. Even if you in some strict religious society in which that behavior or that condition or that lifestyle is something that you abhor. Nobody's telling you that. We're talking about a common alliance against a common enemy. If Mao Zedong and the Communist Party could unite with the Kuomintang that murdered tens and thousands of their people in the struggles and the civil war in China, can build a united front with the Kuomintang, their enemies, against the Japanese who had invaded China in order to fight the Japanese and expel them from China. If they could build a united front together, and then defeat the Chinese. And after the Chinese were defeated in 1945, they went back to fighting each other. And Mao won and ran the Kuomintang into Formosa, which is now Taiwan, which the U.S. is talking about supplying arms to. So if Mao could go into a united front with his arch enemies, you understand, I know that we shouldn't have a problem understanding that if we have a common enemy, whether it's a union, whether it's a structure inside of this capitalist oppressive society that denies us food, clothing, and decent shelter, that we have a common enemy. And anybody that doesn't see that doesn't understand that, they're insecure because their movement sucks and their movement is insecure. I don't see a united front against fascism not being led by Black people or Black organizations. I don't see it that way. I don't know how that would be possible with any united front I'm calling for. That ain't possible to me.
Yes, sir. We're the
So,
radical conscience of the world.
I mean, every time Black folks have risen up within the confines of finance capital in the United States, when it was a European, just a settler colony that was getting rich off our backs in cotton. Every time we rose up, it was other groups and other organizations and other people that benefited from it. You see. When we went into the university with guns, demanding academic freedom, demanding Black studies, demanding an end to U.S. imperialism, divestment in South Africa. When we did all of that, you got women's studies, you got Latino studies, you got all these other programs. You see, but that was. You see, and this is the major fear of the socialists, Black socialists, which I consider myself one as well. This is the major fear of Black socialists and communists, is that their vision of class struggle will be subsumed by reform. And this is what brings me to what I was going to say about what we have to fear during this period between the end of the schools, when all of these kids out in the community, and this is an election year, and the Democratic Party is trying to get votes and this stuff, and these young people are out there, and they got this burgeoning consciousness as a result of being beaten and kicked out of the school. They're starting to see that they want to get politically involved. So who are they going to deal with in this electoral system? You see? So the Democrats are going to try to win them over with their, fake humanitarian initiatives now that Biden had to implement and all of this stuff. You see? So what's coming is what the enemy will call encapsulation. You have to encapsulate the energy and the consciousness of these young people between now and the return to school, and then turn them towards reform, turn them towards meaningless reforms, meaningless adjustments in the U.S. policies and rhetoric, but a maintenance of the system of white supremacy and capitalist imperialism. So they have to encapsulate this energy, just like they did in the post George Floyd energy and the fake hashtag movements that came along. They knew that the energy had to be encapsulated. That's why you had absurd slogans come out like defund the police. A strategy with emotional appeal, but was a dead-end strategy and was ridiculous to begin with, because in a police state, the state is not going to defund the armed agents of the state. I mean, that's a no-go Fargo. I mean, that's obvious. But what's not obvious is how can you, from the local level to the state level, take command and control of those police on that level? Because if you could take command and control and interrupt that decentralization of police authority, where the mayor doesn't appoint the police chief, It's the police public safety districts that nominate and scrutinize and appoint a police chief. So it's turned around. Instead of the police telling us who to vote for, we telling the police who we want to be in charge of our public safety. And this is from the local or state level. However, we have to understand what we're saying here in a police state. They got this idea of terrorism and native terrorism. You're going to be defined as a criminal and a terrorist, and you're going to be demeaned and dehumanized, just like these Palestinians are. So when they kick in your door and they murder you, it's, you had a criminal record, or, you were in a radical organization, whatever. We've been there, did this. I know I have. So that's what they plan. They plan to encapsulate this energy and this consciousness and twist it around so that it would be sidetracked into meaningless reform. And I think this is a legitimate concern of genuine revolutionary Pan-Africans and nationalists. That's a genuine concern of any type of involvement in or development of the United Front, especially when you have a multi-ethnic and multicultural membership or organization. And I like to point out one thing too, my brother, and finally I'll end with this. We have to understand that the demographics of the United States is in irreversible direction. Some people call it the browning of America, or whatever you want to call it. But in your lifetime, inshallah, the United States within the next, I think, 15 years or so, not too far down, is going to be a majority nation of people of color. No longer would white Anglo-Saxon Christian Americans be the majority. And this is something that has struck terror in the spirit of the red, white, and blue jingoistic American nationalists, ethno-nationalists. You see, they're the ones that's behind this idea that the Second Amendment and the right to be held to arms, you understand means that this America is going to hell in a handbasket because of migrants, because of these criminals coming across the southern border, and all of this stuff. This is how they mask this rise to fascist control, and will elect a clown like Trump or back someone like that. And the only reason that clown is possible is because in America, it's no such thing as one person, one vote. It's an electoral college system. And so the elite and the rich and the influential in each state gets to select the electoral college representative and send their vote to the Congress on who's going to be the head of the government. This is a built-in mechanism that the founding fathers put into the Constitution to ensure that each state, those who held wealth and property in each state, will never have that wealth and property threatened by a mass vote, by a majority vote system.
That's right. That's right. Exact.
They built that. It's a built-in mechanism. It's a built-in mechanism to the electoral system that ensures that the ruling elites in each state, that the classes in each state control who will control the military, who will control the executive branch of government. Okay? So they'll send their selectors to, this is why Trump, when he tried to overthrow the election, he tried to set up fake electors. That's who got indicted in Michigan. It was fake electors. And his homeboy, what's his name? His homeboy, the dude with the poker face, you understand, when they told the man, accept these fake electors, he said, I can't do that, man. My role is just ceremonial. The cracker got indicted. You see, and this I mean, this is what that was his last hope, the electoral college system. This is how he won the vote, and he lost the majority. He lost the popular vote by 7 million. That's a lot of people.
It's a lot of people, yeah. Baba Dhoruba, we're getting in on the close of this broadcast. We're gonna have you back, God willing. I just want to ask this though. We know that you've had some health concerns, man. How are you feeling and how are you doing?
Well, I'm here in Africa, right? So, I mean, I have to see I was doing physical therapy, right? But I couldn't keep up the cost because I don't have insurance here in Africa, and I would have to stay in the U.S. in order to complete that therapy. So what I do is I go back and forth every 3 to 4 months, to get my cancer and stuff checked out and stuff. And so that expense and what therapy I can get here is what I've been having to deal with. You see, and so I just got to limit what I can and can't do. But right now, I'm mainly focused, and this Saturday is going to be a pro-Palestinian Pan-African car caravan through the capital of Ghana, and I'm trying to work with people, in the EU and stuff around this decolonization, this new decolonization of Africa that we have to go through. And I'm trying to write, but it's just, I got everything I do with medication here, I got to pay out of pocket because I don't have my Medicare here.
So those of you watching, you hear Baba, what he's talking about is real. You're 79, right, Brother Dhoruba?
Yeah, I'll be 80 at the end of the month.
Wow, that's incredible, man. Listen, family, if you're watching, we talk a good game. You know our people, you know how we do. We talk a good game. But when it comes time to play the game, sometimes we don't show up. It's important we show up for those who showed up for us. Okay? So make sure that you look at that screen. Please go to even if you don't have the money right now, go to that GoFundMe. Check it out. Read more about Brother Dhoruba, what he's done, what he's still doing, and certainly support the brother to the best of your ability. We have to do that as a village. Baba Dhoruba, if people want to know more about your specific idea for this united front, how would you suggest we do that? Now I have the writing, your email. Do you want that to be released to the public?
Well, we're going to post. I hope that I post it on your program. We're going to post it on Black Power Media. We're going to post it on RSTV and all of the outlets that we have where people can write in and sign up. But right now, we're putting together a web page and a sign up where people could inquire about the United Front, can talk about their particular organizations and stuff like that. So right now, people can reach out to both RSTV and Black Power Media and myself in order to get more information. We're going to be having something out in the next few days that will allow folks to have a more central focus. We have to keep in mind too that the medium that we're using, the medium has become the message. So it's interesting how the media and how U.S. technology has become, the byway and the highway between peoples and communications and building, you know. So we have to really move out of this milieu and go into a face-to-face a relationship.
Mm-hmm.
So
Well, Brother Dhoruba, we appreciate your time. We're gonna have you back as often as you have the time and energy to be back to keep us on our political toes and our P's and Q's. Thank you for your time. Thank you for the timely message, and hopefully, Harlem Liberation School will play a role in helping to spread the message of pushing past ideological rigidity and dogmatism, and remembering that why we're here. We're here not to wear this clothing, not to speak this language, not to. We're here to be free. We're here for liberation. And I think sometimes our ideologies, we forget that, and you're helping to remind us of that. So we appreciate that, Brother Dhoruba. And man, listen, have a blessed day, and we'll be in touch soon.
all right, brother. Power to the people.
Power to the people. All right, family, there you have it. Harlem Liberation School doing what we do, helping our people wake up, clean up, and stand up. It is up to us, family. We got to show up. You heard Brother Dhoruba say the Panthers called for a united front in 1969. The radical white left was doing the anti-war, the hippie movement, let's make love, not war. Let's have peace, right? The free speech movement on college campuses. You had the black college students was fighting for black studies. You had the Black Panther Party was fighting against police terrorism. You had the anti-Vietnam War movement. A lot was going on. So the Panthers saw this and said, wait a minute, we need to organize all of these different factions that are somehow anti-establishment, that are somehow anti-imperialist or anti-fascist, right? This is why our brother Fred Hampton had what was called the Rainbow Coalition. It was nothing to do with sexuality. It was about getting different factions of people organized to fight against the empire. And then, of course, Jesse Jackson stole that and formed his own Rainbow Coalition because he was in Chicago. That's another story. And he said what? He said that the leftists showed up, the white communists, the so-called new left, the more modernized communists, the white student radicals showed up. Even SCLC, Dr. King's organization, showed up. But he said the only people conspicuously absent, and this is 7,000 people showed up when they made this call. The only groups of people conspicuously absent was the loudmouth, grandiose, heavily in the political rhetoric, cultural nationalists. The nationalists didn't show up. Talk about the revolution, when we're going to do this, and they didn't show up. So it's important that we don't get so dogmatic that we forget why we are here. We're not here just to talk about the revolution. We're here to win it. And that means we got to study it. And it means we got to do what's necessary to win it. So with that said, we want to thank Baba Dhoruba. We're going to keep you posted on this united front. And I really hope that we're going to be politically, what did Malcolm say? Politically mature. Malcolm got to a point, 65, he said, I'll work with anybody that's trying to get rid of this wicked system. Of course, talking about white supremacy. And of course, there's caveats to that. We can't technically work with anybody. We would have to know that they're the type of people who are against the things we're against, right? And they would have to behave and respect our leadership. But it is important. We need alliances, family. There's no way we're going to win this one with just by ourselves. Very important. So, family, thank you for tuning in. Please subscribe to Harlem Liberation School. And I had Brother Dhoruba's GoFundMe information up. Brother is battling stage 4 cancer, family, at almost 80 years old. And he's still, he's more active than many people my age. It's amazing. Please support those who support us, family. Let us not be known as the people that we're selfish and self-centered and we into vanity and we support our sworn enemies with our money and never support the people that fight for us. Let us not be known as that group. With that said, family, I believe we organize and study and work together. 3 words: we will win. Peace, Black Power. See you next time, family.